Pittsburgh has had at least 3 losses in every season since 1981. But while they may not be breaking out on the national stage, they've still been a major force to be reckoned with in the ACC under Pat Narduzzi. And that will, of course, be the case again this year. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. We're so glad that you could join us today, ready to break down the Pittsburgh Panthers, projecting their schedule and record for this upcoming season. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country, beating out over 80% of the national handicappers each of the last 5 years. So if you want a guaranteed winning record, guaranteed winnings right back in your pocket, the best customer service that any handicapper in the nation is going to give you, this is the place for you. One of the lowest prices in the country for the best picks and results in the country. Go sign up today for that full year-long subscription. Check out our Patreon account as well for exclusive college football content year-round. Become a member of our Patreon Wall of Fame and send us some gear. Send us some gear to our mailing address down in the description below. We'd love to get some Pitt gear in our backgrounds. We try to represent not just more ACC teams, but more teams, period, as we expand our GE Nation from coast to coast. So let's take a look at the Panthers, guys. The Pittsburgh Panthers, a team that was kind of weird what happened to them in 2022. 2021, a very successful season where they went on to win the ACC championship game. Last year had high expectations, but started the year 4-4 before finishing the year on a 5-game winning streak, including that massive upset over UCLA in their bowl game for their second straight top 25 finish. And you look at what they've got this year. The offense loses a lot of talent, but actually has an opportunity to be better than they were last year. This Pittsburgh offense averaged 31.3 points per game last year, now returns 7 starters. Keaton Slovis is gone at quarterback, but Phil Jurkovec transfers in from Boston College within the ACC. And this is a guy that has thrown for over 5,100 yards and 35 touchdowns the last 3 years, and those stats could have been a lot better with the Eagles if he had stayed healthy. So the quarterback health, and we know that Pittsburgh battled with that at times last year, even with Keaton Slovis, is going to be paramount to their success. Phil Jurkovec, we have seen, is a very good quarterback if he can play a full season, if he can stay healthy. If he is, watch out. We know the Panthers do lose their star running back, Israel Abanikanda, who rushed for over 1,400 yards and 20 touchdowns last year, but Rodney Hammond, right behind him, is going to do just fine at running back this year. They do lose their leading wide receiver from last year in Jared Wayne, but then they return their other top 3 outside of him, including their tight end and Gavin Bartholomew. And the offensive line is phenomenal. Only gave up 19 sacks last year, should be just as good again this year. Defensively, always a strength under Pat Narduzzi, right? Pittsburgh typically has a very strong defense. They have not allowed over 25 points per game since 2018. So they've been on a tear these last 5 years or so. Just 24.3 points per game last year is all they gave up. Just 98 rushing yards per game. That was it. Only 232 passing yards per game. They do lose, unfortunately, their top 4 tacklers, but as we've seen time and time again, Pittsburgh has just continuously reloaded. It's just kind of that next man up mentality, and Pittsburgh has consistent depth in all 3 levels. Shane Simon returns at linebacker. That is huge for them. The secondary appears to be pretty strong. MJ Devonshire returning in that secondary, going to be a leader there. This is a defensive line that had 48 sacks last year. Pittsburgh has consistently been one of, if not the leader in sacks in the last few years in college football. Would not be surprised if that is the case again this year. You take a look at their schedule, it lines up pretty favorable for them, so much so that there's an opportunity they could be maybe undefeated heading into their road game at Notre Dame. And really, you look at that game, Notre Dame and Florida State, 2 of the bigger challenges on their schedule. One of them is only a conference game. Only one of them is. So Pittsburgh is, to me, a legitimate ACC title contender this year. They avoid Clemson on the schedule. Yes, they have to play North Carolina, but they get them at home. They get Florida State at home. So the bigger conference games are at home for the Panthers. Makes you wonder, maybe they could challenge for the ACC championship. Could challenge for a top 2 spot, as the ACC, of course, is done with divisions. I'll tell you right now, I think they start 2-0. I think they beat Wofford, and I think they beat Cincinnati. The Bearcats, yes, now a member of the Big 12. The first meeting between Pittsburgh and the Bearcats since 2012, back when they were Big East rivals. But Cincinnati, guys, a rough offense. New coach in Scott Satterfield, major questions on the offensive side of the ball. Defense might not be too bad, but Pitt's got home field advantage. They've got the significant offensive advantage, and they've got the coaching advantage as well. Pat Narduzzi over Scott Satterfield. So give me Pittsburgh. I would actually say comfortably. I'd say about at least 10 points over Cincinnati. They're 2-0. Then you get the backyard brawl in week 3 in Morgantown against West Virginia. Last year's meeting was phenomenal, right? First meeting in over 10 years, 10, 12 years, and it lived up to the hype. Pittsburgh winning 38-31 thanks to that pick 6 in the final minutes. This will be the 106th meeting of the backyard brawl, Pittsburgh's first trip to West Virginia since 2011. The million-dollar question in this game for me is we know what Pittsburgh has, right? We know what they've got offensively. We know what they've got defensively. We know that Pat Narduzzi's squad typically, I would say for many, overachieves. What does West Virginia have? What do they have? A make-or-break year for Neil Brown where they've got questions at quarterback, whether it's going to be Garrett Green or Nico Marchiol. We believe it's going to be Garrett Green. Where they do have some questions at the wide receiver core, a wide receiver core that loses their top 4 pass catchers. C.J. Donaldson, great at running back. It's a huge boost for West Virginia. Going to be a guy they lean on. But outside of that, they have a lot of questions. And defensively, they weren't very good. They allowed 150 rushing yards per game last year. I think, Morgantown is such a difficult place to play, no doubt about it. Pittsburgh can overcome that. Pittsburgh, to me, owns the advantage in every aspect of this game with the exception of home field advantage. And I don't believe that's going to be enough to give West Virginia the win. So give me Pittsburgh to take down the Mountaineers, and then they enter conference play. This is where it gets real, as the Panthers have a quest to try to get back to the ACC championship game. They open up conference play against North Carolina. And many are going to be quick to write this down as a loss. You're going to North Carolina, good offense, Drake May, game over. You look at what happened last year. You go, UNC won 42-24, game over. You got to realize that Pittsburgh was winning that game 24-14 in the third quarter. They really had good control over the Tar Heels before things just kind of collapsed. Drake May and the Tar Heels got hot and went on a 28-0 run to win the game by 18 points. But now Pittsburgh gets the game at home. North Carolina questions on defense. Obviously, one of the worst defenses in the country last year. We expect them to be better, but will they be better this early on? The Tar Heels have a very tough couple first games of the year. They play South Carolina, they play App State, they play Minnesota, then they play Pittsburgh. So they're going to be very battle-tested, which is a good thing and a bad thing for UNC. You look at this game. North Carolina, to me, certainly owns the offensive edge. There's no doubt about it. With Drake May, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, of course you're going to have that advantage. Pittsburgh, they certainly, to me, own the defensive advantage. And they proved to me last year that, and it's not all based on last year, of course, but they proved to me they could contain this North Carolina offense. One that actually does lose their top 2 pass catchers as well. So now with home field advantage and a defense with the secondary being one of their strengths, I think they slow down this North Carolina passing attack and pull off a mini upset over UNC. Pittsburgh, guys, is 4-0, and let's make them 5-0 with a win at Virginia Tech. They beat the Hokies by 16 last year. They've won 3 straight, which one of those, of course, being in Blacksburg, one of the more difficult places to play in the conference. The Panthers can overcome that. Again, I would make the argument similar to the West Virginia game where Pittsburgh owns the advantage in every aspect of this game with the exception of home field advantage. And I do think they can overcome that. The Hokies are going to struggle offensively, have a lot of questions on that side of the ball. Defensively, pretty strong. I'd say they're very close to being equal. Slight edge, though, to Pittsburgh. Panthers get the job done. They are 5-0 heading into the bye week. Nationally ranked, probably a top 20 team. Make them 6-0. They're going bowling with a win over Louisville. And we're talking about Pittsburgh not just maybe making a run for an ACC title, but 6-0 could be flirting with a top 10 spot in the rankings and maybe talking college football playoffs. That's how good this team could be, at least to start, right? I do think they beat Louisville. They lost to them by 14 last year. They were -3 in the turnover margin. I think, again, if they can stay healthy on the offensive side of the ball, they take much better care of the football. Louisville will be strong again defensively, but losing a lot of talent. Keep in mind, this is a team that had 50 sacks last year, but they're losing 33.5 of those sacks. That's a lot of production they're losing. That's a lot of production defensively that Louisville is losing. Now they're coming in with a new offensive scheme, a new coach in Jeff Brom. Pittsburgh off the week of rest at home. It's a close game. Pittsburgh gets the win, 6-0. Then the schedule gets tough. And really, to me, the key stretch for them are these next 3 games. At Wake Forest, at Notre Dame, and Florida State. What happens in those 3 will kind of determine the direction, the trajectory of Pittsburgh's season. Whether or not they can go on to play for an ACC title, maybe be the true college football playoff contenders, or if they're going to fall just short, maybe we see them go for another season with at least 3 losses. And I'm going to tell you right now, I think that's exactly what happens. They go another season with at least 3 losses because I do believe they lose their next 3 games. I think they lose at Wake Forest, a very winnable game, right? That is a winnable game. On the road against a Wake Forest team that will not have Sam Hartman, that was really struggling mightily last year against the pass. So if this Pittsburgh offense with Phil Jerkovic really is gelling well, they can light up this Wake Forest secondary. But I have a lot of faith in Wake Forest offense here. This will be one of the better offenses that Pittsburgh faces, dare I say, maybe all year long. And it'll probably be the second best they face to this point in the year. North Carolina being the first, Wake Forest being the second, up until October 21st. Mitch Griffiths, I believe, is the real deal at running back. Justice Ellison is very solid at running back. They returned their top 4 pass catchers. I mean, this is a really good Wake Forest team that always gets the best from Dave Clawson. Dave Clawson always getting the best out of this team. So Pittsburgh kind of 6-0, they're rolling, maybe looking ahead a little bit to that big Notre Dame game. That very well could be a top 10, top 15 matchup. Wake Forest catches them sleeping, upsets the Panthers. Reeling off of that, they lose at Notre Dame, a Notre Dame team that's a true playoff contender. Sam Hartman, now their quarterback, obviously a phenomenal career at Wake Forest, one of the best quarterbacks in ACC history. This is a Notre Dame team that with an improved offense with him under center and a defense that was really sneakily good last year. I think we kind of forgot about how good Notre Dame defense was last year because of the poor start they had. Will be one of the better defenses in the country this year. I just don't see Pittsburgh have enough to win in South Bend, and I certainly don't see them winning against Florida State at home. I know some people think this could be a trap game. Florida State maybe looking ahead to Miami. It's going to be cold in Pittsburgh. Florida State, how do they handle that road environment? But again, this honestly might be the best offense that Pittsburgh faces all year. I mean, since North Carolina, no joke. Wake Forest, no joke. Notre Dame, no joke. But Florida State, I mean, Jordan Travis, Trey Benson, Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman, Jaheim Bell transferring in from South Carolina. I mean, this is such a good Florida State offense, guys, that it's going to really challenge that Pittsburgh, not just the secondary, but the front seven. We talk about Pittsburgh's secondary being a strength, and that's great. Maybe they slow down Jordan Travis. Well, his dual threat capability and Trey Benson's running ability is something that could really threaten Pittsburgh as well. Even though they only allowed 98 rushing yards per game last year, I could easily see Florida State rushing for over 100, maybe $120 in this one. I don't think they have enough to beat the Seminoles. They're that good. They are that good. And on top of that, Florida State's defense only allowed 20.6 points per game last year and brings 9 back. So even as Pittsburgh slows down the offense for Florida State's defense can do the exact same to the Panthers. And ultimately, I do think they're the better team from top to bottom. They overcome the road environment. Pittsburgh loses their third straight game, 6-0 to 6-3. A bit of a slump there. They do win their next 2, though. Very winnable. Playing Syracuse and the Bronx, where they met over 100 years ago. They beat Syracuse 19-9 last year. They've won 16 of the last 18 games. And again, Syracuse's offense should be about the same, maybe taking a minor step back than what they were last year in last year's 7-win season. And we got to keep in mind, Pittsburgh last year held Syracuse to 145 yards. 145 yards in that game. That's it. I do think Syracuse eclipses that, but I don't think they're going to come out with this massive offensive explosion that exploits this good Pittsburgh defense. Pittsburgh gets another win over Syracuse, makes it 17 of the last 19. They should beat Boston College pretty comfortably. The Eagles should improve. It's the Phil Jurkovec game. That's interesting to me, him playing against his former team. But it's senior day for Pittsburgh. That's a big incentive there. Jurkovec trying to get revenge over his former team. That's an intriguing storyline, incentive enough. They should beat an Eagles team where, again, Pittsburgh is the better team from top to bottom. And then they go on the road to Duke. And a couple years ago, you say Duke's beating Pittsburgh, you'd say, you're out of your mind. Last year, Duke almost won. Pittsburgh won the game 28-26. Duke failing on their 2-point conversion that probably would have sent the game to overtime. But now it is on the road against a Duke team that returns 18 starters, including one of the best quarterbacks in the conference in Riley Leonard. 10 starters total on offense, 8 starters on defense against a secondary that wasn't all that bad. Duke slows that down and forces Pittsburgh to be one-dimensional with Rodney Hammond running the ball. Can he win the game that way? Sure. Will they? I don't think so. Senior day for the Blue Devils, a lot of experience. They own the quarterback at edge with Riley Leonard. Defensively, Pittsburgh owns the edge, but Duke, to me, not that far behind, especially with all the experience coming back. I have a lot of faith in the Blue Devils this year, guys. They might not match last year's win total, but they're going to be dang good in the ACC. And at home, they will take down Pittsburgh. And that's going to give the Panthers an 8-4 record. And for many, that's going to be wildly disappointing considering the start that they had. 8-4, nothing to frown about. Another shot at a 9-win season that they had last year. But starting 6-0, they expect better. I could maybe see them beating Wake Forest, but that's about it. I think at the max, Pittsburgh goes 9-3. I don't really see anything better than 9-3. That's the best they can do. Probably won't be good enough to get them the ACC championship game. But once again, Pat Narduzzi making them a force to be reckoned with in the ACC. Not a team anybody can overlook. Still a legitimate conference contender. 1 or 2 upsets away from maybe playing in the conference championship game. But another 8-win season, another solid bowl berth, and maybe a third straight top 25 finish. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com, our Patreon account for exclusive college football content year-round, and send us some gear to the mailing address, again, down in the description. We'd love to get some Pittsburgh gear or whoever your team may be as we expand our GE Nation from coast to coast. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.